in the walls, from the floorboards, from the very air itself. It formed shapes in the darkness, shapes that resembled a small, gaunt girl with long, tangled hair. I rose from the mattress. My body didn't move. It simply unfolded like a puppet whose strings had been cut and then reformed into a new spectral shape. I was translucent, my form rippling like heat haze, but my features were perfectly clear. The bruises from Mom's beatings were visible as dark purple smudges on my spectral skin. The gauntness of my starvation was etched into my cheekbones. I was a walking testament to her cruelty. I floated up the stairs, passing the petrified figures of my parents. I didn't touch them. I didn't need to. My presence was enough. I emerged into the living room. The blue bassinet was now a blinding beacon of malevolent energy. It vibrated on its stand, emitting a high-pitched whine that made the windows rattle in their frames. The air crackled with static electricity. Mom was curled in a fetal position on the floor, rocking back and forth, whimpering. Dad stood against the wall, his arms wrapped around himself, his face a portrait of utter despair. I looked at them, really looked at them. For the first time in my short, miserable life, I wasn't afraid of them. I wasn't trying to please them. I wasn't trying to disappear. I was the consequence. My name, I said, my voice echoing with 1,000 whispers, is Scarlet, and I am not a replacement. I raised my hand, and the blue light from the bassinet surged towards me, coiling around my spectral fingers like a serpent. I squeezed my hand into a fist, and the light winked out. The bassinet went dark. The subsonic hum ceased. The air grew still. The connection was severed. The battery was empty. I turned my gaze to Mom's stomach. I could feel the nascent life within, the construct of my stolen essence, the new Noah. It was a cluster of cells, a potential fueled by a lie. Without my energy, it was just a pregnancy, a very real, very vulnerable one. Your son is not a ghost, I said, my voice softer now but no less final. He is just a baby, flesh and blood, as fragile as any other, and he is not a second chance. He is a new beginning, or he is nothing at all. I floated to the front door and placed my hand upon the knob. The wood grew cold and brittle beneath my touch. Leave, I commanded. Take the baby, leave this house. And if you ever try to replace me again, to build a monument to your grief on the bones of another child, I will not be a whisper in the walls. I will be the storm that tears this house down around your ears. The key, which had been in the lock, turned of its own accord. The deadbolt clicked open. I turned back to look at them one last time. The house, my house, groaned and shifted, the old timbers creaking in agreement. It was expelling them, rejecting them. Goodbye, Mommy, I said. Goodbye, Daddy. I hope you learn how to be parents to the child you actually have. With that, I opened the door and stepped out into the light of the real world. The sunlight streamed in, warm and golden and indifferent. And as I crossed the threshold, the spectral chains that had bound me to the decaying corpse in the basement shattered. My physical form collapsed into a pile of ash and bone on the stained mattress. I was free. Behind me, I heard the sounds of frantic scrambling. The front door slammed shut, the sound of tires spinning on gravel. And then silence. The house was quiet, truly quiet. The oppressive atmosphere of grief and madness had lifted. The air smelled of dust and sunshine, not rot and chemicals. I wandered the empty rooms, a ghost no longer bound by vengeance but by memory. I found my old room, the one I'd been forbidden to leave. On the desk was the notebook, open to the page where Mom had forged my suicide note. I touched it and the ink faded, the paper crumbled to dust. The lie was unwrit. I floated to the living room and looked at the blue bassinet. It was just a bassinet now, empty, stripped of its power, a sad, hopeful thing waiting for a real child. And then from the street outside, a new sound pierced the silence, the high-pitched, gurgling cry of a newborn. I smiled, a real smile, the first one I had ever truly earned. My parents had left. They had fled, driving away from the house, away from the ghost they had created. Would they keep the baby? Would they finally